Welcome to How to Decorate from Ballard Designs, a weekly podcast all about the trials and triumphs of decorating and redecorating your home. I'm Caroline, I'm on the marketing team.
And I'm Tayrn, and I'm a product designer.
I'm Liz, I head up the creative team.
We're your hosts. Join the expert team at Ballard Designs for tips, tricks, and tales from interior designers, stylists, and other talents in the design world.
Plus, we'll answer your decorating dilemmas at the end of each episode.
We love answering your questions, so don't forget to email us at podcast@ballarddesigns.net.
Now, on with the show. Today, we are joined by a very special guest, Katie Tamony. We've been looking to have you on the show for many months. She is the Chief Marketing Officer at Monrovia Plants. I'm sure if you don't recognize the name, you would recognize the logo because I'm certain that you've bought some of their plants and seen their containers. I know I have, but they are a nursery, and they've been bringing all sorts of bespoke. They grow their own plants, sell them to nurseries. You put them in your yard, and it's where all the gardening begins, really. So we've got Katie on the show. We're going to talk all about her background from editorial to now gardening, and we're going to do a little Q&A around how to get the best plants, what to look for when you go shopping, how to make the right choices in what you're planting in the yard, and many more. And obviously, Tayrn is our resident houseplant aficionado, so I'm sure you'll pepper in some of that as well.
I love houseplants. That's my only. No,
it's not. Tayrn has a beautiful yard.
Oh, thank you.
You do.
Well, great. And I love that you have houseplants. Any opportunity to have living beauty around you is a great one.
Yes, we have said on here for years, but the impact of a houseplant, in most shots that are beautiful, there is some living thing in them.
Sure.
So we know the importance on here.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Well, that is a perfect segue, Tayrn, because Katie, your background was originally in an editorial. As Tayrn mentioned, so many, of your favorite and most just impactful shots of homes have, a fiddle leaf fig, a fern, fresh flowers, all three. And and Katie, your background is really in editorial. You were the editor-in-chief at Sunset Magazine. So you have a lot of knowledge around editorial and what makes a beautiful shot or a beautiful image. So maybe start there. How did you go from being the editor-in-chief at Sunset Magazine to now working for a nursery?
Well, thank you. Thanks for letting me join you today. I had a long career in publishing actually at Sunset Magazine. And for those that don't know, Sunset Magazine was the premier lifestyle magazine on the West Coast, very sort of a sister publication to Southern Living on the East Coast, and covered the same ideas in that, where you are really influences how you design, what's in your garden, how you travel, what you're cooking. So the magazine was about all of those things. And it was such a fun, creative role, to really see what designers were doing all over the West. This was 2001 to 2011 that I was the editor-in-chief. And, to see, the rise of interest in sustainable materials during that time and how widespread, they were becoming in the West Coast. But I think what always struck me was on the West Coast, the sense of seamless indoor-outdoor living, that people were really thinking about inside their home and then how to translate that outdoors. So that sensibility really informed how I approached my own garden. And, when I left Sunset originally, I went to the Museum of Modern Art in San Francisco. I actually worked there for 3 years. I had a passion for art and artists, and I was heading up marketing there, which was really interesting and a total detour. But while I was there, I got a call from the CEO of Monrovia Nursery at the time, and he had remembered me from Sunset. And Monrovia was changing how they were approaching marketing then. This was 2014. And they wanted somebody who knew content and could tell stories and really think about how plants are part of a bigger story, how plants are really part of a lifestyle. And so that really suited, my background. So I came on board and with a great team, we launched a lifestyle blog on our website and started really mapping out future trends that homeowners and gardeners would be influencing their plant purchases. And I'm very interested in consumer research, consumer insights, and that's been one of the things that has really, I think, set Monrovia apart. As we don't just sell plants, we're really thinking about what are the trends that are shaping the way people are shopping for plants and the way that new plants are introduced. Where do we get all these new varieties and what are breeders looking for? And so all of that trend forecasting really got me excited. And it's a huge part of what we do, actually, and what sets Monrovia apart. Because we grow over 4,000 varieties of plants, actually. It's just amazing.
That's
We grow,
unreal.
yeah, we grow trees and shrubs and edibles and houseplants and perennials, just about everything you would need for your garden. We only grow one annual, actually, which is sort of interesting. So, and we don't grow any vegetables. Um, but yeah, the annual that we grow is called Sunbelievable Sunflower. And it really is an incredible
Didn't
sunflower.
know that.
Yeah, it just keeps blooming and blooming from spring to first frost. And it's a really unique sunflower because it stays kind of compact and bushy. It's not the tall, spiky stalk of a sunflower. So it makes a great pot filler. It makes a really joyful, happy plant to plant in spring, and it'll just take you through, like I said, first frost. It's amazing. 1,000 blooms on every plant through the season. So that's the only one we grow, but we grow so many other varieties.
Y'all should see Tayrn's face. Yeah, it's just slack
I
jawed.
mean, I obviously have pulled up the website at the same time because I'm like, I have to see this. I have to see this sunflower. And I am shocked you have one.
I know.
amazing.
I didn't realize that either.
Yeah, so that's the
Yeah.
one. But we grow, thousands of perennials and fruit trees and, like I said, shrubs. We're probably best known for our shrubs. And, Monrovia is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year,
Oh,
which is really incredible.
that
And
is
actually,
exciting.
that's another connection that I liked with Sunset Magazine, because Sunset had a very long history and I think had to constantly evolve to stay relevant. And Monrovia is very similar in that.
Yeah. It's mentioned that you are very interested in consumer insights and trends, and we have so much to cover, but I just felt like maybe while you were talking about that, what are the trends? What are the things that you're seeing coming forward that you're excited about? I certainly don't think of nurseries or plants as being susceptible to trends as much as, say, home.
Yeah,
But I think, maybe it's
I
something that
know.
perhaps you don't think about,
right.
but they are just like any other industry.
Yeah. And I think, people don't garden in a vacuum. We're influenced by,
Yeah.
what we see in magazines and catalogs or travel. We go someplace beautiful and we think, oh, I'd love to have that feeling in my backyard. Or we are cooking something and we want to, that'd be great to grow. So all these things really influence our choice in plants. The size of our yards influence what we want to, have in there, and they influence increasingly the fact that our yards are getting a bit smaller in the US means that breeders are always looking for how do I make this plant that everybody loves a little bit more compact and well behaved, so that's one of the a major trend in plant breeding actually is more compact hedges and trees. So a few trends going on right now that I think would be really helpful for your listeners to think about. One is a trend that we call patio culture. This idea that so many people are really gardening on their patios and balconies, and they want a full, lush feeling out there on the patio, but
Mhm.
they're really looking for plants that will be happy in a container outdoors for quite a while. And also thinking about not just container combinations, but are there plants that look stunning on their own as one plant in a container that make it really easy. And there are so many choices now that do that. So patio culture really increasing interest in gardening, just on the patio or deck.
Container
Um,
gardening, basically, right?
right,
Like that
right.
was
And I think with patio culture, what it is thinking a little bit more about a feeling of wellness and luxury. So not just container gardening, but having an aesthetic that's a higher level.
Yeah.
So where you really got that lush, broad leaves in a container, and like I said, just one plant in a really stunning container to make a statement.
Mhm.
Not thinking only about thriller, filler, spiller, those container combos. Although those are great too, but also simplicity. I guess that's the other idea.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sure. Um, Another key trend that we've been seeing for a while is what we call the easy Sunday garden. So this is like picture a Nancy Meyers movie and her garden landscape. It's very you've got traditional boxwoods and you've got
Mhm.
old fashioned flowering shrubs like hydrangeas and roses, maybe camellias. And the key to the easy Sunday garden is you've got this luxurious, kind of the luxurious bones in the boxwood and some of these classic shrubs. And you're keeping it in a very, again, simple color palette. Like you're choosing, maybe everything's in white, or you have white and blue flowering plants only. And the evergreen, whether it's boxwood or some other choices, give your garden this, year-round structure. But then you add in the flowering shrubs to give it a little bit of romance. But it's not chaotic. It's very tailored.
Mhm.
You know, keeping the color palette simple. You're choosing mainly shrubs and perennials, so you're not having to add a lot of annuals. And that makes it easy. That gives it sort of like luxe look, but it's a little easier to pull off.
And with that one, I am picturing lots of maybe 3 plants, right? So,
Yes,
like, you have 3 options, but you've got, like, 20 of each of them,
that's
right? Like a huge hedge of hydrangea and
right.
boxwoods, not
Not lots of onesie twosies. You're
exactly,
doing a limited plant palette. So
right,
maybe in a quite large yard, you would have like 6 or 7 plants only, and they would just repeat them. So you're
right.
doing masses of color, masses of all one plant, and that looks really tailored and beautiful.
Mhm.
So, but that's contrasted with another trend that's growing, which is more of the natural look, and we call this the modern meadow, or maybe it's a little wild meets refined. Some people are even trying what they call chaos gardening, where you sprinkle wildflower seeds and whatever comes up. But the trend that we are really interested in, called the modern meadow, is where you're mixing grasses and pollinator perennials. You want the butterflies coming and the bees and the hummingbirds. And that's really, you want an environment that really feels alive and thriving and is full of color, full of variety. So it's very much using a lot of perennials, a lot of things like salvia and lavender and agastache and Cape fuchsia, and mixing that with grasses that don't get wild, that stay really lovely and easy to take care of. So mixing those together gives your garden kind of this lovely meadow natural look. And that's become really popular, especially with younger homeowners. Uh, and then I would say the other trend that we're tracking deeply is what I call exquisite edibles. So not just growing your tomatoes and blueberries, but really looking for something special. Maybe you want to try growing kiwi or figs, and maybe you're in a colder hardiness zone, so figs aren't usually something you associate with where you live, but now there's hardier fig trees and fruit trees. People are actually growing fruit trees in small spaces because actually breeders have created fruit trees that will stay kind of, they're not so wide and they don't get as tall, but you can have them even in a container for a few years. Like imagine an apple tree that you can grow on a patio. That's actually
Very
that's happening.
fun.
Yeah. So we see a lot of interest in the kind of, more exotic edibles and things that not everybody is growing.
Very cool. Let's back up a little bit and maybe start with what is, you mentioned Monrovia is 100, almost 100th the 100th anniversary.
Yeah.
What's the background of the company? Where did it begin? Because I've of course had dozens of Monrovia plants and
Right?
didn't really think anything about the brand behind it, but it is kind of interesting how something
Yeah.
like that begins.
Well, the company started with a man named Harry Rosedale, and he came from Denmark with a little
What
bit
an
of.
appropriate name.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's like he was born to
He was
start a
destined
nursery. Yeah, exactly, Destin.
to do business. He came to the U.S. In the early 20s, and he had a little bit of experience growing plants. And he came to Southern California, to the LA area, to Monrovia, California, and he started his first nursery with just like it was small, like 10 acres. Then it grew to 40. And he caught on to something early on, which was that plants, there were unique varieties of favorite plants like the pyracantha or the camellia, and they could be patented so that not everybody could grow them and you could specialize in this plant. And he really made it his passion to find the very best varieties of a certain type of plant and grow those varieties. And he also caught on quickly to the power of branding and setting himself apart. He painted the cans that he was growing his plants in. He painted them green so they would stand out at the nursery. These metal cans, and now our cans are still green, and they set us apart at the garden centers. Um, and Harry started really researching what helps the plant thrive from the very beginning. Like, why do some plants have really healthy roots and some don't? And is there a certain soil type that plants need to grow in? So he was a total plant nerd. He really did a lot of research that shaped the way that we still grow plants today. So we grew from this tiny nursery in Monrovia. Then we expanded to another part of Southern California. Then we added Oregon, and we added a nursery in Georgia. And now we grow on, thousands of acres around the country so we can ship our plants throughout the country. And so many ideas that Harry started with 100 years ago, we still utilize those. And I think a lot of people don't, when they go into a garden center, they actually don't think too much about where the plants come from, you know. But there's so much work that goes on behind the scenes. You look at a spiral boxwood topiary, that's just like in a 5-gallon size. That takes 7 years to grow. Which means somebody's
Yeah.
tending it at the nursery, shaping it, watering it, fertilizing it before it ever gets on a truck. And, some of our plants, it takes us 12 years before we ship them. So it's a
Wow.
serious investment. Other plants, like a lot of plants that we're gardening with every day, perennials and annuals, they're a
Mhm.
lot faster. They take,
Sure.
months to go from tiny seedling to something like, beautiful for your garden. But other ones are really an investment. Like anything that you grow as a hedge, for instance, that has taken some time, and a lot of labor and care. And
Hmm.
I think that's one of the things I really love about the business is just how much we take care of something before we release it, into somebody's garden. So
Yeah.
it's a point of pride.
I think sort of inherently that when you go to the garden center and there's like a 5-gallon bucket plant
Mhm.
and the smaller plant, you automatically know that it's gonna be more expensive, but you
Yeah.
you know, you're
Right.
you're articulating why it's more expensive, and it's because it had to live on the farm for longer.
For a long time, and,
Yeah.
you think about all the people that had to touch that and help it grow.
Yeah.
And then, the other thing I think that sets certain plants apart, like camellias, for instance, camellias, they have to be pruned a certain way and at certain stages early in their life to create a full hedge. If you
Mhm.
just let a camellia at a very young age just kinda do whatever it wanted, it would not be a great shape later. So,
Oh, no.
so I think that, pruning not just with camellias, but you think about topiaries, you could buy a lovely spiral juniper or boxwood that maybe just got pruned into that shape right before they shipped it, or it was pruned several times over its life. And you can tell the topiaries that have been pruned several times over its life, they're more dense and they'll hold their shape, better really forever. Whereas the other kind will develop holes, will, kind of, it won't be as well branched. So I think it really pays to look really closely at the plant before you buy it. I'm super interested in branching, which is not you know, it's not the shiny color that catches your eye. But if you're comparing two plants at the garden center, if you're looking at two hydrangeas, for instance, you really want to look deeply at how it's branched. Is it evenly branched on all sides, for instance? Is it, because then you can really tell that plant was pruned frequently.
My husband does this, and I thought it was so odd. He'll be like, "Look at the shape of those branches. Isn't that amazing?" I'm like, "Okay." I
It
guess you're
matters.
right, but it's
It's
true.
really
That is what makes a plant beautiful, but there's, I guess, more effort and,
yeah. I
intention
mean,
than goes on behind it, whereas I'm just like, "Oh, that just happens to be a pretty one."
it's true. I know. And, of course, our eyes were captured by the beauty of blooms. And, that's really
Mhm.
what sells a plant. But I think knowing, sort of like how is this plant going to actually perform for years in my garden is based on how it's made. It's similar to furniture, in many ways too. You really
Yeah.
want to think about the base of, the sofa or, how something's constructed. That it's similar in some ways to plants.
How much can you control once you've got a plant, or maybe it's something that was already in your yard and
Hmm.
it's in the ground? How much
Yeah.
can you control the shape and the, I guess, branching once it's established versus, needing to buy the right one before you plant it?
I think one of the ways that you can help a plant maintain its shape, or even in some ways, I mean, you can't correct too much once it's there. If the center is, lopsided, or that's difficult to overcome. But I find that a lot of people are afraid to prune plants in their garden, or they prune very timidly. And plants you can actually, many plants you can prune back quite aggressively, and it's actually really healthy for the plant. Cutting your perennials back, cutting your hydrangea, at the right time, of course. Pruning your trees, doing that thoughtfully, once a year. Roses, that will keep your plants looking good, as they grow out. So I think I tell people, get over your fear of pruning. It's really, that's the big advice I give.
It just feels so aggressive.
Right?
You know,
Well, and
cut
also,
it.
when you cut it back, sometimes you're like, oh, that doesn't look very good for a while.
Yeah.
Um, but
Mhm.
what you're doing is sort of trimming so that it comes back even fuller
Mhm.
and bigger, and perhaps with more leaves, more blooms. So it's an important part of, I think, the home garden. And yeah, just the number one thing I see is that people think they just plant something and kind of water it and then forget it. But I
Yeah.
think pruning is really important.
How does a new plant variety develop? I mean, what goes into developing a new species or a new variety of a plant, and what is the Monrovia team? What's the intention or like the goal?
Yeah.
Um, is it
Well,
trends or is it health?
there, yeah, there are trends and there's health. We're always looking for plants that have better disease resistance. Like boxwood blight. I know is a concern that so many people in the country, in their region, they have to deal with. We look for things like disease resistance, longer blooming. I mentioned compact, plants that are more compact. We look for new colors of a favorite, kind of plant. So we choose new plants in a variety of ways. So one is that we work with plant breeders from around the world, in Europe, Asia, Australia, just, literally around the world. We also work with plant hunters, people that go out around the world and come back with something really incredible. So an example of that is Dan Hinkley, who's a really renowned plant hunter. He explores India and China and Nepal, and he will go on hikes into regions where hardly anybody goes, and he will spot an amazing begonia or a fern, and he will collect a spore or seed from the plant and bring it back to the US through proper channels. And he will see if we can grow masses of it at our nursery. So we have a collection of plants from him, actually, a collection of really unique ferns and um, uh, really plants with beautiful foliage. In fact, one of his plants that I think a lot of your listeners might be really interested in it's a Fatsia camouflage. And I was talking about how, with the patio culture and plants that have big, large leaves make great choices. His Fatsia camouflage, which we've been growing for a really long time, is a beautiful attention-getting plant. It has variegated foliage. It's such an amazing statement plant. Wherever it's planted, it just really attracts the eye. So Dan is one way that we get new plants, out to the whole country. But back to the breeder idea. So breeders will start with seeing a trait on a plant that they think is really interesting. Maybe they notice that in this group of plants, this particular one is behaving differently. Maybe it has a different color or it has a different growth habit. And then they will try to repeat that, through propagation and kind of pollination. They will repeat that plant. They will try to make that plant, many more of that plant. They'll try to produce it on a mass scale. And a lot of plants that are just coming into the market today, they were part of a breeding program like 10 years ago. So it takes a long time for a plant to be, not only for a new variety to be, oh, we love this and we can reproduce it, consistently, but then to reproduce it at scale and produce thousands, it can take 10, 15 years or longer. So an interesting part of breeding, so roses, for instance, for many years, breeders were trying to make roses a little tougher, more disease resistant, easier to take care of. And over time, as they were chasing after that trait, roses started to lose their fragrance. And you might, have known this in some way, that it seemed like older roses had a more wonderful fragrance. And it seems like newer roses don't have as good of a fragrance. Well, then breeders realized, by chasing this trait, we've kind of lost the fragrance. So then they started really working on how can we bring back smell. So now you've got roses that blend the best of both worlds. You've got disease-resistant roses that do have fragrance, and those are just coming out in the last couple of years. And they have been trying to work on that for the last 15 years. So it's really an amazing, like I said,
the lead time. Gosh.
Yeah, right. An amazing, it's science, and it's having an instinct for what people, will be looking for. So there's so many fascinating things going on in plant breeding right now. I get really excited.
What are some things that we should look for in the next couple of years in terms of varieties? Can you tell us? Is it top secret?
Well, there are some plants that will always be popular, right? Hydrangeas, for instance, because they grow everywhere, and around the country, just about everybody can grow a hydrangea. So there's always a lot going on in hydrangeas, new colors, longer blooming, earlier blooming. So I think people can keep looking at. There's always going to be stunning new hydrangeas, and we have one this year that we just released for our anniversary that is a color that no one has ever seen this before. It's an amazing red ruby color. It's called Centennial Ruby. And as it ages on the plant, it starts to turn a deep, deep color, almost charcoal. Really fast.
Interesting.
And
I pulled it up.
the blooms are
It's-
so thick and sturdy, they stay on the plant for 130 days.
Wow.
And the stems are
What?
the stems are incredibly stiff and sturdy. The leaves are thick. So this is a hydrangea that can really stand up to weather, and it's really compact. Looks great in pots. It'll stay about 3 feet tall. And this year, there's only a limited amount of them out, for sale. But next year, there's going to be many more, and that's going to continue to grow. So I'd say look for a lot of things going on in hydrangeas in the future. That's a perpetual popular plant for breeders to keep working with. And there's a lot of new hydrangeas that came from the cut flower industry, which is interesting because they really are bred for, with stronger stems and thicker leaves. So I think a new hydrangea is a good idea. We also see a lot of echinacea, which is everybody's favorite flower, cone flower. We're seeing a lot more compact echinaceas. We think of a lot of cone flowers as, they get really tall and kind of leggy, but these echinaceas stay really compact and petite, short, and they come in brilliant colors. I think there's so many new colors coming out in perennials like echinacea and agastache, another one that everybody loves. So a lot of new colors. And then in sort of hedges or boxwood replacements, I think what's going on there is a lot of different kinds of really interesting foliage texture and plants that don't need as much pruning. So have a really nice, just a habit that stays really well behaved and beautiful and aren't as much work. So I think those are the things that people can look forward to seeing.
Very cool. Plant hunters.
Yeah.
I mean, so interesting. Is there ever concern of introducing a new species?
So we don't introduce new species, but we introduce
a new
variety.
plant, but to a place that maybe it hasn't typically grown in, that can be bad.
Well, invasive plants can be bad.
Yes,
And
that's kind of what I'm thinking.
we don't want to introduce invasive plants where they shouldn't be. And because Monrovia ships plants all over the country, we have to be very mindful of a plant that might be fine, in Georgia is going to be terrible in Ohio. So we only ship plants where they're not going to be invasive. So we're very careful about that. And if you go to an independent garden center, it's very unlikely that garden center would have anything that would be invasive. They're making that choice too. Sometimes when you buy online, you might be buying something that shouldn't be grown where you live. We don't ship plants. We sell plants online too, but we again are very careful about where those plants ship to. So I think people sometimes are confused. There's a lot of terms out there about, natives and invasives. And sometimes we oversimplify, it's either native or it's invasive. But there are lots of plants that you can grow happily and sustainably in your garden that are not invasive and they're not native either. So it's not just an A and B choice. I think the ideal that we recommend that people think about is plant a garden that's got a lot of diversity in it, biodiverse. I think it's great when people plant natives that are local, really to their region, and then mix that in with plants that are climate appropriate, but could be what we call cultivars. So we don't introduce new species, but we introduce a new variety. And
variety. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, a new variety is a cultivar of an existing variety. So sometimes I think, not to nerd out too much on plant talk here, but people sometimes think, a species of plant, so it's genus, species, variety. That's the order of things.
Got it, yeah.
They might know a species plant is native to their region. And so they think every variety of that species is native, but it's not. Some of those varieties are probably cultivars, but that's probably okay to grow too.
Okay.
Not to be.
That's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah. I think if you know a species is native to where you live, it's okay to plant a cultivar of that species too.
Okay. Well, I apologize because in the intro I said species, but what I really meant was variety.
Yeah.
So sorry about that.
Why is planting native plants so important to your area?
I think planting a few natives it's really good for the pollinators, local wildlife in your area. Native bees, butterflies, other pollinators kind of need natives. But I think the misnomer is that you need to plant only natives. You don't need to do that. And in fact, the pollinators will thrive best the more diverse your backyard is. So if you have a few natives and then you have a few other kinds of plants with different flower structures, that's actually really healthy for pollinators. So maybe you want some that are kind of daisy-like and some that are tubular and some that are different, colors. That is really going to be good for the pollinators. So I think of thinking about biodiversity is more important than thinking about natives. You want natives, but make them part of a diverse landscape.
Are natives also more likely to be appropriate for your climate, like your amount of rain and your soil and all that stuff? I mean, I would think that
I mean,
they would already be
yeah,
acclimated to the amount of rain and,
I think what's
like, the seasons.
a misnomer, though, is that natives are used to growing wild, right? Out. But they're not used to being in your backyard, and
Hmm.
planted. So sometimes we want natives to behave in ways that natives aren't meant to behave. For
Mhm.
instance, we want a native to stay, to not get too big. And a lot of natives in your backyard will get larger than maybe you had intended, or
Hmm.
they won't bloom very long. Natives tend to have a shorter blooming cycle. So if you plant a garden in nothing but natives, um, I think what we find a lot of people do that, and then a few years later feel like their garden doesn't look very good a lot of the time.
Mm.
So that's why I think
Interesting.
it's good to have a mix. I think sometimes when people say native, what they're meaning is I want something that's good for the climate, that's good for pollinators, that's good for my water conditions, that thrives, here. But there's so many other plants that will do that,
Right.
or, that should be in your consideration. So natives has become a term that's applied to a
Sure.
lot of things when people mean I want something drought tolerant or I want something that's good for pollinators.
But if a plant is native, then it is inherently tolerant of your amount of rain, right? Because no one's out there watering it.
Right. No, it usually natives are usually plant it and don't worry about it. So yeah,
Right.
um they can
Like,
be
I suppose you could prune it, but you wouldn't need to prune it?
well, you'd probably prune it because it got too big because it wasn't looking,
Right.
or it was, I'm just trying to think
Like,
about
the
the
wrong
natives
shape or
I have in
something.
my yeah, I have several natives in my backyard and they tend to be they just are wilder, and I like that look, so
Mhm.
they need more pruning sometimes than other plants.
How has working at Monrovia changed your own gardening habits?
I think I've introduced, more chaos in my garden. I can't resist a new plant. I mean, I really wanna try everything, so I don't follow the, "Oh, plant a mass of one thing because
Mhm.
I'm taking in so many different types of plants and testing things out. I think it's made me try things out that I never thought I'd like
Yeah.
before. I was never a fan of roses before. I thought they were kind of old fashioned and they could get really like long, spiky. But now I have several roses in my garden. I love them. They attract bees. They do really well in the sun, and
You can cut them, bring them
I can
inside.
cut them and bring them indoors. So yeah, my gardening has really changed. And like I said, I've tried out things I never would have. I have a kiwi in my garden. I never imagined having a kiwi. I grow more hydrangeas than I would have thought of. Again, that was sort of an old new plant for me, but I'm kind of fascinated. And I grow a lot of plants for the foliage too. Like I really am
Mm.
fascinated by leaves in a way that I wasn't before. So it's me. I think working for Monrovia has made me more observant about plants in general, and I look at the world with like different glasses now, which is kind of nice.
What plant did you put in most recently that you're most excited about?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I did plant I've got a couple, of course. I planted for the first time forsythia this spring. It gets the beautiful yellow blooms that are just like so dramatic. So,
Hmm.
and I always thought forsythia was really for colder zone areas, not really for me, but I'm trying it out. So that's one new one. And then I think the other one I planted a ceanothus, which does well, especially in the West where I am. And this is interesting because it's a native plant to California, but I planted a cultivar of a native plant, so it has all the traits of a wonderful native. Doesn't need a lot of water. Um, does well with our rain, etc. Handles the heat really, really well. But it has these beautiful, really intense little lilac purple flowers. Um, and the Native Americans in California used to use the blooms of ceanothus almost like a soap. You can rub it in your
Oh,
hands, and it's kind of a cleaning, and it has a really nice fragrance. So I just got really fascinated by that plant, and I wanted to have it in my garden. So, but like I said, it's a hodgepodge out there. It's a potpourri of plants. I call it. That's the kind of feeling.
I'm fascinated because you're in the front of the cool trends. You know all the
Mhm.
cool plants.
Oh
So,
yeah,
my gosh.
And I imagine there's samples that you can
yeah.
take home occasionally to try out.
I
Yeah.
try out things, and then
Yeah.
I'm able to we're able to say, oh, this it's really
Offer
performing.
your feedback.
Yeah, and actually we look for that. We try to get our plants out into gardens around the country to sort of test them out. We do a lot of trialing and testing at our nurseries, to make sure that plants are going to be good in different kinds of climates. Like roses, for instance, we do a lot of testing at our Georgia nursery because it's very hot and humid there. That if roses are going to get some sort of disease, they're going to get it in Georgia. Mm.
Yes, we know.
I was gonna say outside is literally the rainforest
Yeah.
today. So
Oh my
yes.
gosh, it's so gross. Yeah.
So we did trialing and testing for a couple of years before we release a plant out into the market.
Okay.
And we're really looking for plants. We trial them with very little support. We don't give them extra fertilizer. We don't, we just give them like regular watering. We don't prune them. We just want to see kind of what they do. And that's always fun, that part of the process. Because some things will be really look kind of exciting, and then after 2 years, it's kind of a dud actually. So we won't
Mhm.
really pursue that.
Yeah.
So a lot of plants
Interesting.
get
Yeah.
rejected, actually.
What are some things that we should know before we go to our local garden shop
Mhm.
to buy? Like is there anything that we should be doing differently when we've got our cart and we're loading things up? Is there anything we should do differently when we're planting,
Sure.
getting
Well,
it in the ground?
yeah, I think when you go to the garden center, I was talking about how our eyes are attracted by the bright, shiny, the blooms, but I think choosing a plant that has a lot of potential is a good way to go. And you look at a hydrangea, for instance, you can see the buds that aren't yet in bloom, and look for a plant that has buds all over it. So you're going to choose a plant that's going to be blooming for you longer than a plant that's already in bloom before you plant it. So I like to tell people choose the one that's not yet in bloom. There's a good
Oh, I've so made that mistake because in my mind I'm like, "Oh, this one has the most blooms, therefore it's the healthiest."
right. No,
But
this-
yeah. But then it's already half bloomed by the time you get home. Like,
yeah.
but
Well, for instance, like peonies, you really want to buy those when before they're in bloom. You want to buy them at the garden center when they're just like it almost looks like you're buying a pot of dirt. You just want to get like what's called the eye of the peony is just up. That's when you want to get it and take it home and plant it so that you'll really get the most blooms, the longest blooms out of
Ah,
the peony. Um,
interesting, makes sense.
so when you get it home, I think one tip that I would say that a lot of people don't think about roots when the plant is sending out roots into the landscape, it's going to send out kind of all around it. And I think some people dig a hole really deep, but not really wide. And
okay.
Mhm.
we recommend doing the hole that you dig should be at least twice as wide as the plant, and a little bit deeper than the plant. But you really want to dig a hole that's very wide. And then you want to make sure that if your soil is really clay, you want to put in lots of lots of amendment. You need to loosen up that soil to make it easy for the roots to get established.
Mm.
Um, so having some amendment, but not planting a plant only in potting soil or soil mix. You want to mix it with your natural dirt too. You want to really
Mm.
amending is mixing. So you don't want to just put it in a hole that's not soil native to your backyard. You want to mix that. That's pretty important. I like to put in
Oh, it's
a
like
little bit.
baking.
Yeah,
Like fold in
right.
your wet to the dry.
That's
Okay.
right. That's right. You want to mix your ingredients. So I add a little bit of slow release fertilizer too before I plant, like right in the bottom before I put the plant down, because that's going to just help the plant get off to a good start. We add something to our plants that Harry Rosedale, the guy that founded us, his team really created the insight into this, which is that plants that are grown with a beneficial fungus, which is called mycorrhizae, it's natural material. It's natural. It's fungus. So we add it to the plant when we grow it here at the nursery. It's in the soil, and when you take it and plant a Monrovia plant in your yard, that beneficial fungus is going to help the roots uptake nutrients and water and get established more quickly into
Hmm.
your garden. I think a lot of people have heard more and more about the benefits of fungus in nature, and so this fungus really helps the plant get off to a good start. So
Interesting.
yeah,
I had no idea.
and then I think that the other thing so you've got your plant in the hole that's twice as wide, and make sure that you're not burying that plant in there. Like you should make the plant, just kind of the soil should just cover the root ball for most plants. And then you want to water it in really well. And then the thing that a lot of people forget is to add mulch on top of that. Mulch is going to help suppress weeds. It's also going to help the plant retain moisture, especially if you plant later in spring. Your plant is going to encounter heat pretty quickly. You want to keep them from the roots from getting too baked. So you really want the mulch on top. So that's the last. That's your finishing. Your dressing on top is really, really important. And I think the other thing that people don't think about is you can get plants off, especially shrubs and trees, off to the best start if you plant in fall. That's really a great time for planting, but everybody's dazzled in spring. That's when you
I
want your garden to be
know.
alive and look wonderful. You've got people coming over. You want it to look great, but I really encourage people to think, what can you plant in the fall? Because it's cooler, and you're going to let the plant's going to be able to settle in and start to get the rain. And by next spring, it's going to be just fantastic. If you can do some of your larger, like if you're going to do a big hedge planting, or I recommend fall for something like that.
What's the best if we say the spring does dazzle us, like you said? um, yeah, what's best to buy in fall versus spring? Like you just gave one example, but is there anything in the spring that you definitely see
Like
is better than, or
annuals,
just mostly?
obviously.
Yeah. So annuals, and a lot of perennials, a lot of your, the sort of like fun stuff, the color, the dressy stuff. That's wonderful. And I also think something like, peonies, buy them, like I said, buy them in spring when they're just up over the lip of the pot, and get them in the ground before they really take off.
Why
So
why are they like that? Why the peonies gotta be that way? They're so beautiful.
I know it's one of those things that I think we love them too because they're sort of fleeting, you
Mhm.
with them, and
Mhm.
then that's it.
She's
Um,
picky.
yeah, that's right.
I just think it's the amount of layers. And I mean, to your point, a lot of flowers have a lot of layers,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah.
Peonies are they're unique, and they're so it's a bulb. It goes back down to the ground, and then it comes back up. I think that's one of the things that's wonderful about plants is that, like I said, they're
Yeah.
they're fleeting. You look forward to that mass of color. It doesn't last all year. It's worth
Yeah.
having something like that in your garden, in addition to things that look good all year
Mhm.
longer, a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And bulbs are all pretty much in fall, right? Like,
Well, I mean, you plant a lot of them in fall, but some, uh, are it's
Or
a
like even in winter.
yeah, but some of it is a plant that, like hostas, you plant that in spring, so it just I think a lot of times we think of bulbs, the flower kind, like tulips and,
that's what I'm
yeah.
saying when I
And so,
say
yeah,
bulbs,
that you
right?
plant in fall and then you get it in spring, but I think others, we plant in spring and get it a little bit later in spring, so.
Ah. And then what about separating plants? Because I know that's a thing.
Dividing, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
when are you supposed to divide and who, how, why, when?
yeah. It depends on the plant, but, when plants are getting kind of crowded, that's a
Mhm.
it goes back to pruning, I think some people are afraid,
It's the same. Yeah, no,
same
it's very
idea, but,
scary.
go for it. You know, plants are a lot tougher than you think, and, yeah, dividing your, whether it's hostas or something else, you can
Mhm,
absolutely do that, at the beginning of spring or in fall, you can do that as
mhm.
well.
Yeah,
Have you
I
ever
have
tried that,
one.
Tayrn? I've never tried dividing
I have
plants.
this hosta that I forget because she dies away in the winter,
Mhm.
and then I'm like, "Oh, she's not that big," and she came back this year, and I was like, "Dear Lord, you're taking over the walkway." Like, I need to scoot everything in this one bed around, like, now that I've kind of, grown up and realized, okay, there's different heights here that aren't working. And
Uh-huh.
then the seasonal part is
Yeah.
we have a whole bunch of daffodils in there and then they die.
Yeah.
And then the hostas come up and there's a fern in there it's sort of my evergreen,
Yeah. Well, even the fern probably kinda, you
He
know,
kind of does, but he
does
doesn't
by
fully
that can happen.
disappear
Right,
in the
right.
Mhm.
like where we are. Yeah, but to your point, yes, I mean I love plants because they're living. I think that's why they are such a great thing to sort of collect is like but the way people, like, they will kill one and be done, and I have been like, "No, there's the sacrificial one. You gotta, like." I had the sacrificial fig tree, fiddle leaf
Uh-huh.
tree,
Yeah,
and I learned a lot,
yeah.
um, and now we're just, like, propagating it. We've had it
Yeah.
snap off and then propagated that, and that's
Mhm.
been, so fun, like you said. It's like all of a sudden you're like, look what I can do and make more of."
Right, right, it's fascinating, and, I think the other thing that this is funny is that sometimes you'll think a plant is dead, right? And completely
Mhm.
and then you'll see a little bit of, "Wait,
Yeah.
Mhm.
something's happening there," and it'll come back. That's happened to me with a plant I thought I had killed. It was a little, jacaranda, actually, I had a sort of a more compact shrub type, and I thought it was just sticks, and I moved it, and now it's thriving, so
Right?
Yes.
don't be afraid
Moving is yeah.
Mhm.
don't be afraid to move your plant. Definitely you don't wanna move it. I think fall is a great time to move plants and divide plants. You wanna choose your
Mhm.
timing. You don't wanna move it in the heat or when the plant's gonna get stressed.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, fall or, winter, depending on where you live, great time to relocate a plant that's been struggling. Or maybe your sun exposure has changed because of something. Your neighbor cut down a big tree or,
Yeah.
that can affect what's in your garden. So sometimes plants just need a new location.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
I know this is, it reminds me of I was just reminded of this the other day. Uh, we did an interview with James Farmer,
Oh, I love
and
James.
yes, he's the best,
Yeah.
but he was saying, "I could have been a gambler, but instead" I'm gonna misquote him, but it was like, "I could have been a gambler, but instead I had a more expensive hobby, and it's called gardening." It's like there's always something to move,
It's
something to
true. Yeah.
replace. Oh, another little patch of space you can figure something else how to do with it. I mean, there's
You
always
know
something
you
to
know
do in
what's
the garden.
what's funny with, James Farmer is we gave him, some roses that we wanted him to try out, and we gave him kind of the runt of the litter, like a rose that people weren't really, they didn't know if it was really gonna become popular. It was called Nitty Gritty White,
Mhm.
and, it's a kind of a lower growing
Did he
rose.
turn it into a bestseller?
It's yes, he really popularized it. Well, one of the things that he helped us discover was that Nitty Gritty White, its behavior in a container is really amazing. It just like explodes with blooms. And
Huh.
we hadn't really seen, it's funny, this is a funny case where the color of that rose, the white, behaves in a very different way than the yellow, the peach, the pink. And we didn't realize
Crazy.
that the white kind of comes out in these like sprays of bouquets almost on the plant. And James planted many of them in containers around his pool, and they've just become like the focal point of his pool area. And he's just loved them and told us that and told, his followers about it. So that plant has become really popular.
Yeah.
I
I know
love the-
exactly which plant you're talking about because
Okay.
I've
I was
seen
gonna
his
say,
pool
you've
and it's
seen
fabulous.
it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it has a yellow center to it. Is
Yeah,
this
it gets a little
uh,
pink.
amazing?
Yeah, it's really, really pretty.
That is so funny that, again, trending plant. I'm
Mhm.
still dying because it's so true. It's so true. I think I just hadn't really thought about. I mean, I remember the first time we saw a fiddle leaf, going back to that and being like, what is that?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, and
It's filling
magazines.
the visual space. Yeah, we were just like,
Magazines totally popularized that. Yeah.
Another plant that's really taken off, similar to, and catalogs have popularized this, is olive. The olive,
Right.
yes.
small olive tree, or like we have a shrub called Little Ollie, dwarf olive. Looks great in a container. That's a really good choice. But now everybody wants an olive tree. They want to grow it indoors, which is really not good for, you don't want to do that with an olive. But that's one that's really taken off, and people are,
Mhm.
Ironically, my husband bought 2 of them.
Oh.
With some containers in the back.
There you go.
Were they from Monrovia?
I don't know. He's my gardener. I'm going to have to ask him.
Yeah.
I have learned so much from you today.
I
mean,
know.
I know I've seen the stacks of the green pots. So that part of me, I'm like, I know. He likes to keep all those pots. And I'm like,
Oh,
we're
sure.
going to the
Yeah. Reuse them, plant other stuff in them.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have a greenhouse, and he is always like
Oh, lucky
hoarding.
you. That's
I know.
Yeah, 1, 2 minutes. It's just for fun.
Uh-huh.
It's a hobby all the way. But
Yeah.
he keeps 1 too many of the plastic containers, and I'm like, should we switch them for some
Oh, yeah.
prettier pots?
I'm guilty of that too. I keep holding on to containers. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but I'm going to use it for
I
something.
know it feels so big though. You're like, I can put something.
I love to use the containers to scoop.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like when you're scooping, like
Oh,
you're
yeah.
Yeah.
But
better
no,
than a shovel. Yeah.
my husband's past keeping a few. Like
Yeah.
I will wait
It's
till
just
he's
all of them.
kind of gone, and I'll go to the stack and toss a few,
Yeah.
bury them, and recycling so he can't see them. So ironically, back to the main point, I was like, olive trees. Yeah, that's his.
His new.
We tried a peach tree and like you were saying, trees and planters. We tried a peach tree and a pear tree.
Oh, uh-huh.
And
yeah.
we got a good season, 2 good seasons, and then one got zapped by heat and one got zapped by cold.
Yeah.
In the planters. And so we've actually moved them to the yard because they were still living. They just were less attractive. Again, half of it kind of alive and the other branches weren't.
Yeah, and that will happen too. I think that some plants, like I said, they can only do so long in a container. They really want to be in the ground.
Mhm.
So I sort of advise that too. Like, think about something in a container like 3 years, and then it's time to. Although I had a Japanese maple in a container for a really long time. That
Yeah. It's
was
good to
quite
know. I
happy.
think the 3 is really good to know, actually, kind of to set expectations.
Yeah.
We'll see if these olive trees make it a season. Currently, they're getting drowned, and I think
Oh,
they
yeah.
I think they like the dryness that we had before this week in the rain. But yes, I think it's so funny that there's trending. But we sell a lot of faux florals on that mallard, and I think that I've also realized through that, what is trending.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because I just remember we had the ugliest fake tree upstairs and this little loft railing when you came in, and that was the entrance to our home.
Uh-huh.
No offense, Mom.
Ah,
Yeah, and they've cut. I feel like that probably started my whole fake living, and then I was once I got in a real plant inside, I was like, oh yeah, this is.
Well,
Now I have another.
but what is trending in fake florals these days?
It's a good question. The olives are definitely, especially the little trees, which
Yeah.
I know. Again, I think the living ones are so sweet. I think we have a lemon balm.
Yeah.
One too.
Fruit.
See, I'm gonna
fruit
embarrass
trees. I would
myself.
say also just in stems, it's stuff that looks white, stuff that looks like you could have cut it out of your yard.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
willowy kind of
sure.
branches or
the modern meadow.
Yeah.
But in,
there you go, modern
but
meadow.
in branches.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that kind of makes me wonder, what would be, say you want to do that, but you want to do that with real. Like, what are some things you could plant for cutting? Like, if you knew that you loved fresh cut plants and instead of constantly going to the store, what are some things you might recommend for that?
Well, I think unusual, we already talked about roses and hydrangeas, et cetera, which are all great choices for the cutting garden. But things like leucadendron, that's a really interesting structural, plant. Forsythia, beautiful for a cutting garden. Actually, we grow a crepe myrtle shrub, which is amazing. And that would be a stunning choice and really different for a cutting garden. It only gets like 3 or 4 feet tall, and it has these amazing flowers. And you can get darker foliage. I love things with dark foliage for unusual, arrangements inside. So there are a lot of interesting choices, like even physocarpus. You could grow that because the leaves are sort of interesting, and that could be part of your arrangement. So many choices. I go out in my garden just walking around with scissors and And I grow Laura petalum. It's a pretty common shrub, and that's a really makes a nice addition to an arrangement because the leaves are so delicate, and I've got the deep purple foliage one, and then the bright green one as well. So I cut snippings off of that. That's a great choice, actually.
I was going to say that plant again because my spelling is common.
Oh, Laura petalum.
Laura.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you will recognize it, Tayrn. It's like
you see it everywhere.
Yeah.
But that's an easy one, and it gets the little fringe flowers on it, so that's pretty and different kind of choice.
Yeah.
Yes. Those are always so pretty. Yeah. They stand out just because they're coloring.
Yeah.
Amazing. No, thank you. I think those are some great because we always want to bring more of the outdoors in.
Yeah,
so.
Definitely. Lots of garden lovers around here too. Well, Katie, thank you so much for joining us. What a treat. Can you tell everyone where they can find you, follow you, and see your work?
Sure. So again, I'm Katie, and come to Monrovia.com or follow us on social media at Monrovia Plants on every platform. You can explore on our website. We have a tool called Plant Finder, and you can put in your zip code and then what you're interested in. Like, I need something deer resistant, and I want it to bloom in spring, and you'll see the plants just for you and your area that way. So I recommend use my Plant Finder and follow us at Monrovia Plants.
Yeah,
wonderful.
Agreed. The website is great for that.
Thank you.
It's amazing. It is a great way to start to figure out everything.
A good planning tool. Yeah.
Thank
you. It was great to be with you today.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right, that's our show. And that's our show. You can find all of the show notes on our blog, howtodecorate.com/podcast.
To send in a decorating dilemma, email your questions to podcast@ballarddesigns.net so we can help you with your space.
And of course, be sure to follow us on social media at Ballard Designs.
Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. And please leave us a review. We'd love to hear your feedback.
Until next time, happy decorating.